My name is Genevieve Laurent. I'm 38 years old and I work as a logistics supervisor for a regional distribution company in Charlotte. My life runs on structure, not because I'm rigid, but because structure keeps things clean, predictable, contained. Every morning I'm out the door a little after 6. Every evening, unless something breaks out of sight, I'm home before 5. I know what my days look like before they happen. I built it that way. 5 years ago, before Daniel and I moved in together, I bought my townhouse. Mortgage in my name, utilities in my name. Every bill accounted for, every expense tracked. Stability isn't something I hope for. It's something I design. Daniel Hayes is different. He's 36, works in public relations for a hospitality group. His schedule shifts, part office, part remote, part social events that blur into something less defined. Where I am structured, he's fluid. And at the beginning, I thought that balance made sense. We've been together 5 years, living together for 3. On paper, we work. In reality, it's more complicated. Daniel has a presence, the kind that fills a room without trying. People lean toward him when he talks. He knows how to read people, adjust his tone, make them feel seen. I used to admire that. At home, though, that same skill turns into something sharper. If dinner is late, it becomes a quiet comment about my time management. If I forget something small, it turns into a broader observation about how he carries the emotional weight of the relationship. It's never loud, never explosive, just consistent enough to make you question your footing. I'm not easy either. I know that. I don't entertain circular arguments. I don't soften things just to keep the peace. When there's a problem, I address it directly. Daniel prefers interpretation, tone, timing, implication. We speak different languages when it comes to conflict. About 3 months ago, he started mentioning someone, Sophie, his ex-girlfriend. At first, it was casual, almost dismissive. She still doesn't understand how this industry works, he said one night, scrolling through his phone, always asking for advice. I didn't think much of it. Exes exist, histories overlap, it's normal. But then the tone shifted, subtly. The kind of shift you don't notice unless you're paying attention. She's going through a lot right now, he said a week later. Breakups, career stuff, it's messy. Then, she's actually handling things better than I expected. Then, she's funnier than I remembered. It wasn't what he said. It was how often he said her name. One evening I asked him directly, not accusatory, just precise. Is there anything going on with you and Sophie that I should know about? Daniel laughed. Not nervously, not defensively, just lightly, like I'd asked something unnecessary. Jen, he said, shaking his head. You're overthinking. She's just someone I used to date. The delivery wasn't aggressive. It was dismissive, like the question itself didn't deserve weight. I let it go. Not because I believed him, but because pushing without information doesn't get you anywhere. About 6 weeks ago, he came home late. There had been a regional networking event, something he said would wrap mid-afternoon. He walked in close to 10. I was still awake. He looked irritated that I was. They kept us for debrief, he said, dropping his keys on the counter. You wouldn't understand how intense these things get. I didn't argue. Not that night. The next morning, I noticed the printed schedule he'd left on the kitchen counter. Final session, 4:15 p.m. Networking until 5. That was it. He'd texted me at 4:40. Wrapping up soon. Then nothing. Until 9:12. On my way home, I didn't confront him. I verified. Same schedule online, same times. Out of curiosity, I checked the hotel's bar hours. Open late. That evening, I asked him how the debrief went. He shrugged. Boring. Metrics. Internal stuff. Who stayed? I asked. Most of the team. A pause. Half a second. Small, but noticeable. Was Sophie there? I asked. He gave me a look. Obviously, she works there. His tone shifted when I asked follow-ups. Not accusations, just details. Who led the debrief? Where it happened? Which manager was involved? You're interrogating me, he said finally. It's exhausting. So I stopped. Not because I was satisfied, but because I had enough to know something didn't align. 2 days later, his phone lit up on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. I wasn't looking for it. But the screen kept lighting up. Same name. Sophie. 3 times in a row. No group chat, just her. When he came out, I asked, Why is Sophie texting you at 10 on a Sunday? He didn't hesitate. She's going through a rough time, he said. She needed someone to talk to. He said it like it was obvious, like he was doing something generous. I nodded slowly. I'm not comfortable with that level of emotional intimacy, I said. Not like this. Not this often. He rolled his eyes. You're being territorial. That's not what this is. It's exactly what it is, he replied. Men and women can talk without it being something inappropriate. What stayed with me wasn't the words. It was what wasn't there. No reassurance, no adjustment, no acknowledgement of how it looked. Just irritation that I had noticed. That was the moment something shifted for me. Not outwardly, internally. I stopped trying to interpret and started paying attention. I didn't confront him again after that. Not because the questions went away, but because I stopped needing answers from him. I started verifying things on my own, quietly, carefully. The following week, Daniel had a client dinner across town. He mentioned it casually that morning while pouring coffee, like it was just another entry in his schedule. "Should wrap around 8, he said. I nodded. "Want me to keep dinner warm?" He shook his head. "Don't wait up." At 7:15, I sent a simple message. "Do you want me to save anything for you?" No response. At 9:40, he texted back. "We're closing out the restaurant now. Be home soon." I stared at the message for a moment, then opened my browser. The restaurant he named closed at 9 o'clock on weekdays. When he got home, he looked relaxed, not rushed, not like someone who had just finished a long business dinner. "How was it?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Good," he said, slipping off his jacket. "Client's happy." "You stayed past closing?" He paused. They don't kick out big tables," he said a little too quickly. "We were spending a lot." "Possible, but not consistent." The next morning, his blazer was draped over the chair in the dining room. The receipt was still in the pocket. 1 entree. 2 drinks. Timestamp 8:12 p.m. No group dinner, no extended meeting, no large tab. Just him. That was the first moment I felt it fully settle. Not anger, not even hurt. Just clarity. Something had already ended. 3 nights later, he fell asleep on the couch, his phone still in his hand. The screen lit up once before it dimmed again. Her name, Sophie. I sat there for a long moment, listening to the quiet hum of the house. I don't go through people's phones. I never have. Trust to me isn't about access. It's about consistency. But consistency was already gone, so I picked it up. Not to search, just to confirm. I opened the thread and scrolled to the most recent messages. They weren't subtle. Inside jokes I didn't recognize. References to nights that didn't match the schedule he gave me. And then, a line that stayed with me longer than anything else. It felt good to be wanted without being criticized. I didn't need context to understand that. That sentence was about me. I took a few photos of the thread with my own phone, set his phone back exactly where it had been, and turned off the lamp. I didn't wake him, didn't confront him, didn't cry, because at that point, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was processing. The next day, during my lunch break, I called an attorney. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just practically. She asked the kind of questions that strip a situation down to its structure. How long have you been together? 5 years. Living together? 3. Joint assets? Yes. Children? No. Whose name is on the property? Mine. There was a pause on the line. That simplifies some things, she said. We talked about accounts, shared finances, documentation. She didn't tell me what to do. She just explained what was possible and what mattered. Evidence, timing, clarity of intent. I appreciated that. Neutrality in moments like that feels more honest than comfort. Over the next week, Daniel's behavior shifted in small, noticeable ways. He kept his phone closer, took calls in the garage, turned the screen away when messages came in. And then he started accusing me. "You've been cold lately," he said one night. "I've been observant," I replied. He frowned. "That's not how relationships work, General. You don't just withdraw." "I'm not withdrawing," I said calmly. "I'm paying attention." He didn't like that answer. A few days later, when I declined sex, honestly, simply because I didn't feel comfortable, he sighed like I had inconvenienced him. "You're punishing me now?" No. "Then what is this?" "I don't feel connected right now." He shook his head. "You're making problems where there aren't any." That phrase again. Minimization. Reframing. Like reality was something flexible, depending on how he described it. A week later, he came home different. Lighter. Almost energized. He poured himself a glass of wine and leaned against the counter like he had something to celebrate. "I needed this," he said. "A break from all the tension." I watched him for a moment. Then I asked, directly, "Are you sleeping with Sophie?" He didn't answer right away. That pause. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't shock. It was calculation. And that told me everything before he even spoke. "Yeah," he said finally. Just like that. No hesitation after the pause. No visible regret. No discomfort. Just acknowledgement. "How long?" I asked. "A few weeks." "Where?" "Her place. Sometimes hotels if we're out of town." I nodded once. My hands were steady. My voice didn't change. Because anger, would have given him something to respond to, something to push against. And I wasn't interested in a fight. I was interested in truth. Why? I asked. He took a sip of wine, like this was a normal conversation. She's easy, he said. No pressure, no constant criticism. I let that settle. And me? I asked. He exhaled. You're intense, General. Everything is structured, measured. It's exhausting sometimes. I didn't argue that. I asked one more question, the only one that mattered. Do you care about her? He shook his head almost immediately. No. And then he said it, calmly, casually, like it simplified everything. It didn't mean anything. I never actually had real feelings for her. Something in me went quiet after that. Not broken, not shattered, just separated, cleanly. I looked at him for a long moment. Explain that, I said. He shrugged. It was physical, convenient. That's it. It's not like I'm in love with her. So that makes it what? I asked. Acceptable. You're overreacting, he said, almost amused. Adults separate sex from feelings all the time. I studied his face. The certainty, the dismissal. If it didn't matter, I said slowly, then you risk this relationship for something you don't even value. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're being dramatic. That was the moment I understood. Not just what he had done, but how he thought. And once you understand someone's framework, you stop trying to fix it. After that conversation, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't ask him to choose, because there was nothing left to negotiate. What he said mattered more than what he did. It didn't mean anything. That wasn't a defense. It was a blueprint. It told me exactly how he measured consequences. So I stopped reacting like a partner and started thinking like someone closing a contract. That night, I moved into the guest room. No announcement, no discussion, just a quiet shift of space. He noticed, of course. Seriously, he said from the doorway. You're doing this now? I need distance, I replied, folding a blanket with deliberate precision. You're overreacting, he repeated, like saying it enough times would make it true. I'm making decisions, I said. There's a difference. The next morning before work, I logged into our joint accounts. Checking, savings. I documented everything. Balances, timestamps, transaction history. Then I transferred exactly half into my personal account. Not more, not less. Half. When you move emotionally, you make mistakes. When you move precisely, you don't. By noon, my phone started lighting up. Daniel. Call after call. Voicemail after voicemail. I didn't answer. I was in a meeting. And I don't mix personal chaos with professional responsibility. When I finally listened later, the tone wasn't what people expect. Not regret. Not apology. Anger. What the hell did you do? His voice snapped through the speaker. You don't just move money like that, General. That's not yours to take. I let the message finish before deleting it. When I returned his call, my tone matched his, but without the emotion. It's marital property, I said. Half is mine. You're trying to control me financially. No, I replied. I'm separating assets. Silence. Then, you're really going to blow this up over something that didn't even matter? There it was again. The same logic. The same dismissal. That's exactly why I am, I said, and ended the call. 2 days later, I met with my attorney in person. I brought everything. Screenshots of the messages, a written timeline, dates, inconsistencies, patterns. Not because I needed to prove fault, but because clarity creates leverage. She reviewed everything without reaction. Then she looked up. What do you want? She asked. Clean separation, I said. No escalation, no drama, just done. She nodded. Then we proceed carefully. We drafted the paperwork. Separation agreement. Financial protections. And then she asked a question that most people hesitate on. Do you want him served at home or at work? I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was unsure, but because I understood the weight of the decision. At home is private, controlled. At work is undeniable. No avoidance, no delay, just reality, delivered in a place where image matters. At work, I said, not for revenge, for certainty. In the days leading up to it, Daniel acted like nothing had changed, like I would cool off, like this was temporary. I ended things with her, he said one evening, leaning against the kitchen counter, because you're being irrational and I don't want drama. I didn't respond emotionally. Did you tell her you misrepresented our relationship? I asked. He frowned. That's not your concern. That told me everything I needed to know. Nothing had ended. He was adjusting the narrative, not the behavior. That same night, I asked him, calmly, to explain again why it didn't count. He rolled his eyes but answered. Confident. Certain. Unaware. I recorded the conversation on my phone. Legally. Quietly. On that recording, his voice is clear. I didn't have feelings, it was physical. You're blowing it out of proportion. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't challenge him. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone fully reveal themselves. The following week, everything moved into place. I closed our joint credit card, opened one in my name, transferred recurring payments, documented everything, clean, methodical, final. Service was scheduled for Valentine's Day, not intentionally, just the earliest available date. That morning, I went to work like any other day, reviewed reports, answered emails, walked job sites. At 10:17 a.m., Daniel was handed the papers at his office reception desk. At 10:19, my phone started ringing. I didn't answer. Not immediately. I was mid-conversation with a contractor, and I don't let personal decisions interfere with professional responsibility. By the time I checked my phone, there were 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and a string of messages. The first one, "What is this?" The second, "You serve me at work? Are you serious right now?" The third, "Call me, now." I stepped into my car before listening to the voicemail. His voice was tight, controlled, but barely. "Jen, this is unnecessary. You're making this bigger than it is. We can handle this privately." Not a single word about what he did. Only about how I responded. I let the message end. Then I sent one text. "All further communication goes through attorneys." And then I blocked his number, not out of anger, out of discipline. Within minutes, a call came from an unknown number. I declined it. Then another message. "You're really throwing this away over nothing?" Blocked. If he wanted to discuss assets, he had a channel. If he wanted to argue, I wasn't available. By late afternoon, my attorney confirmed service was complete. Financial protections in place. No sudden withdrawals. No asset manipulation. Everything. Contained. That night, I packed a small bag. Not because I was forced to leave, but because distance reduces volatility. I stayed with a colleague for a few days. Around 8 p.m., an email came through. Subject line, "We need to fix this." I didn't open it right away, because there was nothing left to fix. I read the email the next morning, not out of urgency, but out of habit. The subject line was the same. "We need to fix this." The message itself was controlled. Not emotional, not desperate, strategic. He said he had ended things with Sophie, that it had been a mistake, that it was physical and meaningless, that he realized I was the stable one, the one who showed up, the one who built something real. It didn't read like regret. It read like recalculation, like he had finally understood the cost and was trying to renegotiate after the fact. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to my attorney. That became the pattern. From that point forward, everything went through structure, process, documentation. Daniel didn't respect that boundary at first. Later that morning, I received a call from his sister. We weren't close, so I let it go to voicemail. Her tone was sharp, controlled, but edged with accusation. "Genevieve, this is extreme. He's devastated. You're acting like this is something unforgivable." That word again. Extreme. I listened to the message once. Then I sent it to my attorney. Within hours, a formal notice was issued requesting that third parties stop contacting me. The next message came directly from Daniel's lawyer, a request for a temporary meeting to discuss reconciliation before escalation. Reconciliation wasn't on the table. Not because I was angry, but because I was clear. That afternoon, Daniel emailed me again, longer this time, more detailed. He said he had cut all contact with Sophie, that it had meant nothing, that he hadn't realized how serious I would take it, that we could reset, start over. There was one line that stood out. "I didn't think you'd actually leave over something like this." I read it twice. Then I replied once, copied my attorney. Clear, measurable, contained. I stated that his admission of infidelity was documented. I stated that I would not pursue any external exposure as long as the separation proceeded without obstruction. I stated that I expected the townhouse, my townhouse, to be listed within 60 days, and that I was open to mediation for asset division. No emotion, just terms. He responded within minutes. "What do you mean documented?" I didn't answer that question. I didn't need to. That evening, a courier delivered an envelope to the townhouse. Inside was a flash drive. My attorney had approved it, not as a threat, as clarity. It contained the recording, his voice, calm, certain, explaining that it didn't count because he didn't have real feelings. I wasn't there when it arrived, but I knew when he listened, because the next communication didn't come from him. It came from his attorney, requesting confirmation that no recordings would be distributed publicly. The tone had changed. For the first time, there was caution. After that, everything became procedural. No more emotional emails. No more attempts to call. Just schedules, documents, negotiation. In mediation, Daniel tried to reframe the narrative. He said we had both been distant, that I had been cold, that he had felt unseen. I didn't argue feelings. I stayed with facts. He admitted the relationship with Sophie had been physical. For several weeks, he admitted he concealed it. Intentionally. His attorney redirected him when he tried to minimize it, because minimization doesn't hold up under structure. We agreed to list the townhouse. The market was strong. We both walked away with equity. Accounts were divided. Cleanly. No court scenes. No public exposure. Just consequences. During a break in mediation, he approached me. Careful. Measured. Are you really willing to end everything without one more conversation? He asked. I looked at him, not with anger, not with sadness, just clarity. We already had it, I said. That didn't count, he replied quickly. I wasn't taking it seriously. I held his gaze for a moment. That's the problem, I said. The last time I saw him was at the title company. We signed the final documents across from each other. No raised voices. No apologies. Just paper moving across a table. At the door, he paused. I still think this didn't have to end like this, he said. I nodded once. It did. And then I walked out. It's been 8 months. I rent a smaller place now, closer to work. Fewer memories attached to the walls. Simpler, cleaner. The dog stayed with me. That was one of the few decisions we made without friction. People have asked if I regret how final I was, if there was room to fix it. The answer is no, not because of what he did, but because of how he understood it. It wasn't the betrayal. It was the framework behind it. When someone tells you something doesn't count, because it didn't matter to them, believe that, because that's how they measure impact. I don't hate him. That surprises people. I just don't trust him. And without trust, there's nothing to rebuild. We haven't spoken since. No messages. No accidental run-ins. Charlotte is big enough for that. Last week, someone mentioned he's still at the same company. Different team. Sophie is gone. Transferred. I didn't ask questions. I don't need updates on a life I chose to leave. Sometimes I think back to that moment. The pause before he admitted it. Not with anger. With precision. That was the turning point. I asked a direct question. He chose a dismissive answer. Everything after that was just paperwork catching up to reality.